Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is of a double murder that happened in 2019. This case has been suggested to me and it was also recently featured on Netflix. I found it so interesting and I wanted to spread, well, the word of it really, because it's just so heartbreaking how this occurred. It is the case of Carnell Sledge and Kate Brown. Basically happened in a public area and nobody knows who did it. It is so heartbreaking and so terrifying, to be quite honest, because a lot of people say, oh yeah, we'll meet in a public area because it's a safer place to be, and sadly for these two it was not. So yeah, let's jump right in. Katherine Brown was born on the 12th of October in 1985. She was known by Kate to everyone. Her parents were called Tom and Kim. She had two sisters, an older sister called Lauren. Younger sister was called Alexandra, and she absolutely adored her family, her friends. She loved music, dancing. She enjoyed playing sports and being active. And also she was very goofy and carefree, as her sisters described her. Now, she did sadly have some troubles in her life. She did suffer with depression, anxiety, and would turn to alcohol to cope with that. But she then decided that she wanted to give alcohol a boot, and she did get sober. She was very happy with where she was in life. She actually worked in a local jewelry company doing marketing, and she'd been there for 7 years. She considered her boss and her co-workers as family. And she also really enjoyed just cuddling up to a rescue cat, Kit. Kate started enjoying exercising, as I said. Her apartment was not far from Rocky River Park. It kind of overlooked it, and she would often go for jogs and things down there. And she had actually been sober and on this health kick and doing a lot better for herself since 2017. Now let's talk about Carnell. Just give you a bit of his background. Carnell Sledge was born on the 3rd of April in 1979 to his parents Carl and Darlene. He also did have a younger brother who was called Terence, and they had a fantastic relationship. They were so very close. He was also really close to his grandmother, who was called Audrey Posse. I apologise if I've said her surname wrong. But they loved each other and he would go visit her all the time, support her. She even said that she loved to cook and he loved to eat. And so they had a fantastic relationship. He was a lovely person who was loved by all his family and friends, and he always just wanted to help people. He actually worked, and all his jobs sort of were featured around children because he just wanted to help people, and he coached children with disabilities. He was described as being having such a big smile, and he loved and accepted everyone for, you know, just who they were. Now, he and Kate actually met in a club, when Kate was actually 21 years old. It's actually quite a nice story because apparently she physically bumped into him and he was just such a nice guy, and so they got to talking and they became friends. They were friends for over 10 years. And it was one of them relationships where they didn't always have time for each other, in the sense of, for example, say you get into a relationship, you're busy or whatever, life throws at you. You can't always talk to your friend all of the time. So there would be moments in life when they weren't so close and didn't speak as often, but they would always come back together and they were always, in the long run, there for each other. And when they did sort of meet up again and come back together, it was as if, you know, they'd just sort of pick up where they left off, kind of thing. That was just how their friendship worked. On Tuesday, the 4th of June in 2019, Carnell had been at work and he had plans to meet with his grandmother later, and they were gonna eat together. That was around about 5 p.m. that he was supposed to go there. And at some point during that time, he actually texted Kate to see whether they wanted to meet up. And she agreed, and they made plans to do that. So that was Carnell's plans. Now, Kate actually went to the on-site gym, signed in there. That was about 3:38 p.m, which at not long after, at 4:02, is when she receives a text message off of Nell asking if they wanted to meet, etc. And then at 4:10, she rings him and they have a conversation that probably lasts about 10 minutes. Now, obviously, we don't know what occurred in this conversation, but it was probably discussing what they wanted to talk about, where they wanted to meet, etc. And then at 4:24 is when Nell leaves work. And then not long after, at 4:31, Kate leaves the gym and they both head to the destination that they're going to meet each other at. There was actually, so we know this timeline through CCTV and whatnot, and there was a police car doing radar, and from the dash cam of that police car, we spot Kate's car and it's arriving towards this park that they're going to meet at where they've previously arranged, and it's 5:01 p.m. So that's Kate's car. Then at 5:03, Carnell's car passes by this cop car as well. Now, Carnell was often referred to as Nell in his family, so if I do say Nell, it's Carnell. You know, that's how his family lovingly called him, as like a nickname kind of thing, just like Kate is her sort of nickname. Anyway, they estimated that it would have taken them around about 2 minutes or so to actually get there. So they both arrive, they both pull in their cars, and there is a bench by this river. They sit down and they have a conversation about, well, nobody knows, to be quite honest. We don't know why they met up, we don't know why they wanted to. But it has been drawn the query as to why Carnell did this, because he was supposed to be at his grandma's eating food. I've seen that between 5 and 5:30, but his parents or his grandma has actually said that it was supposed to be 5 when he was supposed to be going. And for him to drive from his work to this park, it was a 14-mile journey in the opposite direction, kind of, from where his grandmother lived. And then from the park to his grandmother's was a 22-mile kind of journey. So he's here, and then he's going sort of down to the park and then all the way to his grandma's. Whereas if he would have just gone to his grandma's for the food, followed the plans that they had, he would have just gone sort of down there and it would have been a lot less time. So basically, the question bears as to why they had to meet so, well, everyone's thinking it's last minute and quite urgently because, like I said, he had plans. Now, why couldn't he have told us this on the phone, met another day, if he had plans with his grandma? It's a bit strange. But anyway, they did meet up that day. Then at 5:08, Kate unlocks her phone. So she gets access to her phone. So we know that at that time, everything was okay. At 5:22, a call is made to the police by 2 people who were actually going kayaking. And they had found a gruesome discovery. Their names were Tony and Caitlin Batcher. Apologies if I've said that surname wrong. I probably have. I'm not good with pronunciations. I don't mean anything by it. Anyway, this call goes through to the police, and they had gotten out of their car and were going to check whether it was okay to sort of set their kayaks. And they see a body lying next to a bench, facing kind of the water, sort of on the floor. This person was a black male. He had his eyes open, and as they approached, they realised that he had a gunshot wound to the head. Then it is noticed that there is another body. Where the bench is, it's pretty close to the river, but there's kind of a bit of grass and a bit of banking, and then the river. And down that banking and face down in the water, which was quite shallow at this point, apparently at the time, because the river's been a lot more swollen than that before now, but it was quite low, the water level, was a white female's body. And she also had a gunshot to the head. So they're telling the police this. Police quickly arrive. And they start looking around and seeing what's what. They're thinking originally, initially, maybe it's a murder-suicide. So they scour the crime scene. They look for weapons. They find 3 shell casings. And as it actually turns out, the black male had 2 bullets to his head and the female had 1. So they find 3 shell casings, which are very close to where the bodies were. They excavate the area trying to find a weapon, and they do not see a weapon. So they're thinking that these 2 poor people were actually just brutally murdered. You know, there's no weapon, so they didn't do it to themselves. They were clearly murdered. They're looking around to try and figure out who these people are. And obviously, as you guys know, I'm talking about them. And I've talked about Kate and Carnell. These people are Kate and Carnell, very sadly. But the police didn't know that at the time. So they find 2 cars that are unoccupied and just been left there in the car park. They run the plates and they find that they belong to Kate Brown and Carnell Sledge. When they looked inside, they figured this was definitely not some sort of robbery as a motive, because inside Carnell's car there was 2 phones, there was all this stuff, wallets that were on show, nothing was taken, everything was still there. Same in Kate's car, her phone was recovered, it hadn't been taken. Well, actually the phones might not have been in his car, they might have been on his person, but they weren't stolen. And again, her purse was in full show, nothing had been taken, not one thing. So they're thinking this is not a robbery. Obviously they have to then break the heartbreaking news to the families of Kate and Carnell, who were completely and utterly devastated and had no idea as to why this had happened. Now, Kate's family knew that she was friends, princess, with Carnell, and they knew him quite well, and they were absolutely devastated that, for one, they lost Kate, and for 2, that Carnell had also been murdered, because they knew him and they, you know, they were really good friends. But Carnell's family didn't actually know about Kate, but his mother also said that that wasn't abnormal. You know, she knew of some of his friends, but she didn't know of them all of them. Carnell was actually 40 years old at this point, and I think Kate was 33. So, you know, it's pretty typical that not every family member knows about everyone's friends. That's not necessarily how it all works. Everyone was completely devastated, as you can imagine, and they just wanted to find out who had done this. It was done quite close quarters by the you know, looks of everything. Police scoured all the CCTV, which is how they came out with the timeline, which I've already told you. Police actually found blood on the back of the bench, and they came to the conclusion that potentially, because it's not for sure, because we don't know what happened, whomever did this to them, the police reckon that both of them, Nell and Kate, were sat on the bench, maybe chatting. The person came up to them and shot Nell first. He fell to the ground. They then shot him again. Meanwhile, Kate's witnessed this and she has tried to run. So she jumps down the banking into like the riverbed, and then that is when Kate is then shot in the head. And whoever did this just took off. And this is in the space of really not long. So if you remember, I said that Kate actually accessed her phone at 5:08. And then this phone call came into the police at 5:22. That is a gap of what, 14 minutes? 14 minutes. Something happened. Well, not something. This happened within the space of 14 minutes. It is just unbelievable. When they got there, there was a guy sat in a truck, which even the people who called it into the 911 noted. And he had just been sat there the entire time, but he's busy doing something. So the police go over to him. He was a roofer. He was busy actually doing things on his phone, working, and on his like laptop, iPad thing, whatever it was, can't remember. And the police really looked into him because people thought, you know, how could you not hear gunshots? Well, it was said that a handgun was used, and therefore they were a lot quieter. If a silencer was put on it, you wouldn't have really heard anything. And the distance that he was away from the crime scene across the road and in his truck, the police do believe that he didn't hear anything. They also extensively checked all of his tablets and everything that he was working on at the time, and they can confirm that he was doing the work that he said he was doing. So he was quite easily distracted. He wasn't staring out at them. He didn't witness anything, or at least what he says, he didn't witness anything. But the police have that to back it up, basically. So they ruled him out as a suspect. And you know, some of the family members and people do believe, you know, that he would have definitely heard something. Personally, I don't know. I mean, if there's a silence on it, and it's a small gun, who actually knows? Which it was a small gun. It was proved to be like a small gun. And then they started looking into anyone as a suspect, really. You think, well, if this meeting that these two had together was last minute, which everyone thinks that it was, and it was so important, whatever they had to discuss, that they needed to meet up there and then, even though Carnell had plans with his grandma. If it was so last minute, what the hell? How the hell did this happen? Was somebody following one of them? Followed them there and killed them both? People have said that they think that Carnell was potentially the target if this was the case, because he was shot twice and he was shot first. However, I bring forth another thing that popped into my head when I heard about this, was that Carnell was a big guy. He was like 6 foot something. He was a big guy. So if your target is Kate and you have a gun and you're going to take her out, so say you go to shoot her first, then maybe he could do something about it. He is going to be the biggest threat out of the both of them. And so maybe the killer actually was targeting Kate and decided to take him out to take out any possible threat against them and then take out Kate. I mean, it's just a theory. It's just my thoughts on it. We don't actually know what happened. Other people have said that, again, Carnell was the target because he had the 2 shots. I mean, it's up to whatever you guys want to believe, to be honest, because nobody knows. And they don't even really know, I don't think, that if Kate was actually running away, or whether she was just closer to the river, but I think that she was running away, personally. Now, the other thing is as well, if this was a crime of sort of a total stranger, just like an opportunity, some people have said that maybe it was a hate crime, seeing a black man and a white woman sat together on a bench. Maybe they just pulled over in rage and killed them both. Other people have suggested that, you know, the target was either one of them or both of them. It was a jealous ex or something along those lines, because they didn't like that these two were very close. One of Kate's sisters did actually say that Kate had told her that a few months prior, Carnell had said to Kate, you know, one day we will end up together. I don't know how, like, that progressed, how she felt about it, etc. Who knows? Maybe, and a family do think that if Carnell was the one reaching out, that he was maybe going to talk to her about their relationship. But again, we don't actually know on that one. We don't really know a lot, to be honest. Maybe the killer was lying in wait for them and knew enough about the pair that they were going to meet up in there. I mean, Kate and Nell apparently had met up in that park a few times. Like I said, Kate lived pretty close, and it was very normal for her to meet up with friends and etc. in there, and she'd met with Carnell in there previously. I'm not saying it the exact same spot that they were at then, but, you know, it wasn't uncommon for who to do that. But this killer, whoever did this, was so bold and brazen that this was done. Okay, it was on a Tuesday, so it wasn't mega busy because people would have been in work, etc. But it was still busy. The cars went up and down that road all the time. And this person has just shot 2 people in broad daylight in the middle of a public area with cars passing. Surely someone must have seen something. That's my question. Nobody saw anything, really. Anyone was a suspect, even Carnell's ex-girlfriend, Alyssa. They looked into her. She also had a permit for a concealed weapon, a small handgun. They asked if they could take that in for evidence and test it. She agreed. She completely cooperated with the police fully. It turns out that that was not the murder weapon. She was actually in work at the time the killings happened, and she claimed that her and Carnell were actually getting back together. So they dated for a few months, decided it wasn't working, and so they split up. And they still kept in touch a little bit, and they started getting close again not long before he died. And she said that it was on the cards for them to get back together. So I wonder if that is the case. Do you think Carnell was meeting up with Kate to tell her that? I don't know. It's very strange. Not even necessarily that why they met up might give any insight into the case, but, you know, it might do, because what if, say somebody's following one of them, and he wants to tell his friend or something that he's worried, and that's why he put off plans for grabbing food with his grandma to go and tell Kate this. I don't know. It's all a bit weird. And it was not Alyssa, and they really don't know who it is. The family are desperate. They've put out, there's a reward for any information with regards to this case. They even put out posters around the park asking if they were there within these 40 minutes on this certain day and if they had any information on it. And the park took them all down, which fully breaks my heart, because I get it. They don't want negative publicity. They don't want people to not feel safe in that park. But this happened in their park. How can you hide something like that? It happened. People know about it. And if people don't feel safe there because 2 people were gunned down in broad daylight, then they're not going to feel safe there. Putting out these posters to try and help the family and these poor innocent victims get some justice, I don't see anything wrong with that. I just think that they should have let them be and just let them run, even just for a little bit, just to see whether anything came of it. But they took them down pretty quickly by the sounds of it. And it's just really heartbreaking. But yeah, that is the end of the case, because, again, we don't have a clue what happened. I really hope that one day we find out, and I hope that it being on Netflix can totally spread it out to everywhere, and maybe somebody who actually did see something of importance could come forward and tell the police, and this case can finally be solved. That is the hope for everything, obviously. Even if my video does a little bit of something towards that, you know, I'll be really happy, and I hope that the families and stuff get what they are looking for, because they lost a piece of their lives that they will never ever get back, and they have no idea why. They have no idea who did it, and they have no idea why. And that is the worst. Absolutely the worst. But yeah, that is the end of this case. If you enjoyed the video, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you want to, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.